Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe. Entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Welcome to episode 62 of the Industry Angel. We are back, and so are the kids. Back to school. Yeah. All right, guys. Okay. So, time to knuckle down. All right. We've got the rest of the year to absolutely smash it. I cannot wait, and I know you guys can't too. Let's get stuck in. I've got some cracking things lined up for the rest of the year. A quick heads up, I have 3 training sessions coming up. I'll be running a business modelling day on September 12th, how to dominate social media on October 3rd, and my Sell Like a Rockstar Day on November 14th. These days are all held in Sunderland, and you can drop me a line, host@industryangel.com. I'd love to see you there. Okay, shout outs. Andrew Wood and Mandy Barker got in touch via Twitter. Thoroughly enjoyed last week with Linda Smith. Sharon MacArthur commented via LinkedIn, "Wow, love Linda, what a woman, my hero." I'm glad you enjoyed that, Sharon. Lee Hogan got in touch via Facebook. He's been meaning to get in touch for ages to say how much he loves the show, so thanks for the kind words, Lee. If you're just like Lee, drop me a line. I'll never know unless you tell us. Paul Chute, David Calvert, thanks for the support via LinkedIn, guys, and Twitter, much appreciated. Thanks to Paul Lancaster, who put me in touch with Rick Jesse and the guys at Startup Stickers. We now have some great stickers to give away. Rick enjoyed episode 55 with Simon on building a brand in 30 days. Glad you enjoyed that, Rick. Thanks to Gavin Forster for his feedback. He's smashing through the episodes after discovering the show recently. So, you know how to reach me. HostIndustryAngel.com. Keep in touch. I love to hear from you. Okay, on we go. Today we have a self-styled seniorpreneur from the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. Welcome to the Industry Angel, Irene Manson.
Thanks, Ian.
Wonderful to have you with us, Irene. So, well, look, let's see what the weather's like, because I'm British. I love the weather. Okay, tell me all about what's happening over in Queensland.
Well, it's the first week of spring. And today, I think, was 28 degrees. I don't know what that translates to.
That translates to jealousy.
And it was a beautiful blue sky, sunshine day. And the long weather range forecasters have predicted no rain for the next several weeks. And everybody's hanging out for rain. So, but it's the best time of the year.
Is it really?
Yes, because it gets cooler at night, so you can still sleep. And in Queensland, where we live, it gets very humid. So this time of the year, we don't have the humidity. So it's a lovely time. The sun's lovely if you can, sit out in the sun. It's just perfect.
Well, we're getting to the end of summer, coming into autumn now, which is my favourite season, actually, because you get to wear nice jackets and things that you've bought and you never get a chance to wear them, and it's nice, fresh, and you can go for walks and things. So,
well, it's interesting where we live in that it's very subtropical. So my son was born here, and it wasn't until he went to school in America that he discovered springtime and blossom trees, and then autumn with the autumn leaves. He had never seen that here, because here it's hot and humid and warm and sunny. So you don't get all the seasons, and it was quite an experience for him he rang me and he said, "Mum, you should see these beautiful, the green, the new leaves when they come on the trees," because he arrived when they were all bare, and it was a totally new experience for him as a 16-year-old. He was just in awe of all the spring flowers and daffodils and jonquils and things like that you guys probably all take for granted.
We do indeed.
We just don't get them. We just have palm trees and hibiscuses and bougainvillea and stuff like that.
Well, actually, it's interesting you mentioned the States, because I think we'll get into that later on. But before we do, I think a nice little segue into the conversation. You sign off your emails with Peace of Mind Specialist, and I love that. And it kind of it it's a nice little steer into the business. So if you don't mind, on this episode, what I'd like to do, before we get a background and who's Irene and what's going on, I'd love you to tell us about the product so we can kind of picture it in our minds, and then we'll hear the journey. Is that okay?
Fine.
So let's dive straight in, Irene.
Great. Basically, our company is called CareCallingNow, and we are a daily automated call service for a wellness check-in by phone for vulnerable people that live in our communities, because I'm sure you've all heard the horror stories, and I was so saddened by a story that I read in your one of your newspapers about a young woman who lived in a high-rise apartment. Somehow, I'm assuming it was council sort of living. She was a single mother. She was epileptic and had an autistic son. She had an epileptic fit, choked, swallowed her tongue and died. And the young boy who she had locked in because he couldn't, because she didn't want him to get out, he didn't know what to do, so he just curled up beside her. And with the way things are in our communities these days, and neighbours don't know what's happening with each other, nobody noticed. And I think it was, I can't remember the exact figure, but I think it was 5 or 6 weeks later they found them both dead in the apartment. And people said, well, didn't you smell it? Like, surely. And they said, they just thought it was her Congolese cooking, which is, doesn't say a lot for Congolese cooking. But but we just found that even in this age of so much communication, people are less and less connected. And everybody lives pretty much with tunnel vision to a lot of extent. We're all so busy with kids and one thing and another, and we just found there was a need for this. And what we do is we call the person. It's not a loneliness call, so there's no conversation and there's no engagement. As I said, it's an automated call, so it's just, hi Ian, this is your daily call from CareCallingNow. Please push any numbered key on the phone to acknowledge that you're okay. Please push the button now. Thank you. Your response has been received. Have a nice day. So it's really short, sharp, quick, and it's done. And a lot of people find, because it's not intrusive, they don't have to make conversation. They are happy to do it, and it sort of absolves some of your family members who are caught up with children and life in general from having to find the time. And sounds really awful that sort of thing happens, to call your loved one that lives by themselves. And so by calling ourselves peace of mind specialists, we're giving peace of mind both for the person that's receiving the call, plus the person that is not making the call but now discovering that, or they've got the peace of mind of knowing that that person's okay without them having to call them every day.
I love that. So God forbid, Irene, if the person who was being called couldn't make that call, but what happens? How do you get alerted? Because you haven't pressed the button essentially and picked up. Yeah.
So to have the response registered, they need to A, pick up the phone, and B, push the button. And we purposely made it any numbered key, so they're not under pressure to remember, do I have to push 1 or do I have to push 2? I haven't got my glasses on, I can't see it. So any numbered key. So we've tried to make it pretty simple. But if they don't answer it, then there's a second call made 15 minutes later. And if they don't answer that one, then there's a third call made another 15 minutes. So there's 3 attempts within half an hour. If none of those calls are answered, then at the time of registering, there's an opportunity to put down up to 2 alternate people, ideally a next door neighbour, or someone that can either see your place or has a key, or knows where the key's hidden, that they're prepared if we call them to say, look, we've been calling so-and-so, they haven't answered the phone, that they understand that they need to pop over and have a look. Sometimes it's a case they can look out the window and say, their car's not there, obviously they've gone to the shops or the doctors or whatever and they've forgotten. And Then if none of those calls are answered, then there's effectively a sixth call made to the person that was nominated at the time of registering, that we call the emergency contact. And that person has the option of getting a phone call or a text message plus an email to say, hey, all the numbers that you have given us have not responded. You need to do something as a matter of urgency. And that's basically where our service then finishes.
There's a story here, isn't there? There's a story. So where did this come from, Irene? This is just... you said something there. In this age of communication, we are less and less connected. And I wrote that down, and I love that, and I totally get it. Is that something that you found personally, Irene, that you had a member of your family that you weren't connected to? Or
no, it wasn't so much that. We moved up here, and my husband's mother remained down in Melbourne, which is about 1,000 miles away from where we are. And what happened was we decided we would buy her one of those medical alert necklaces, that if you fall over, you push the button and help comes. And we thought, problem solved. We're good. We don't have to worry. She's taken care of. Unbeknownst to us, she flatly refused to wear it. She said it was too heavy around her neck. It was this, that, and the other thing, and it lived pretty much permanently in the dresser drawer. So we didn't really know that this was happening until she had a fall, and a neighbour hadn't seen her around for a few days, and she'd been lying on the floor for 2 days. Now, I'm guessing if someone lies on the floor for that period of time, the time must just go tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
It must seem forever that you're lying there. No food, no water. Luckily, she recovered reasonably well. She was perhaps one of the luckier ones. Not everybody does. And two days is pretty quick. We're finding anecdotally, people are telling us 5 days is probably the norm, more so than 2 days. 5 days seems to be very, very common before somebody notices that they haven't seen you around. So we sort of, at that stage, there were no other options, and we sort of mulled over that for a while. And Ian's mum passed away. She's been gone quite a while, and we were doing other businesses, and we were busy with our own family and, paying mortgages and school fees and all that sort of stuff. And now that we've are older and have become coming towards the end of our business sort of life, working life, we thought, hey, now this is something that we could do, and we felt that there was a gap in the market for this sort of thing, because they're not mutually exclusive. You don't have to necessarily have just the alert or our service, because there was a story here on the television on an ABC program where there was a gentleman that lived in a retirement home, and the retirement home provided him with one of the medical alerts, and he also had a mobile phone, and he wore it, unlike Ian's mother, he wore it every day. But when he went to bed at night, he took it off and he put it on the bedside table along with his watch and his phone and whatever else, and he went to bed. During the night, he gets up and he was on a walking frame. He went to the bathroom. He's not going to pick up the phone or put the medical alert on to go to the toilet because it's just right there. What could possibly happen? Murphy's Law. His walker caught on something. He fell over in the home, and he was there for 5 days. He said he could hear, people outside, the gardeners pottering around in the garden or doing the rubbish bins or something. He tried to raise them, but they didn't hear him because he said, they had the things in their ears listening to whatever, so they don't hear what goes on around them. He said he had a next door neighbour come and knock on the door, but she was a bit deaf, so she couldn't hear him. And it was only just that he had a cleaner that came in every 2 weeks, and the cleaner came in after he'd been lying there for 5 days. Luckily, it wasn't a 10-day gap or whatever, and found him. Now, contacted the retirement home and they said, oh, we provide, 24/7 monitoring and all that, service. But I said, it's all well and good. They've got to be able to let you know, though. If you can't reach the thing, then it doesn't matter how many people you've got there if they don't know. And a funny little side story with him was he was lying on the floor and there was a bottle of whiskey up on the shelf, and he had one of those, those claw things attached to his walker, and he was trying to reach the bottle of whiskey and he couldn't get it because he said, well, if I'm going out in a blaze of glory. But and he ended up, I think at the time of the program, he'd been in hospital rehabilitating for about 9 months. So the cost to the taxpayer for that. Plus, he said his health was noticeably deteriorated, and also his confidence about living alone at home and independence took a bit of a beating too. So, if they'd have had our service, he would have been picked up the next day because we would have rung him. He wouldn't have answered the phone because he couldn't reach the mobile, and he would have been found, and it would have been so much more better all round.
So you and Ian, your husband, you had this idea. So how did you take it forward, Irene? What did that look like? What did that program look like from that kind of that idea? How did you take it to conception and right the way through?
Well, we'd been in a business for the last 18 years, and we decided we sold up everything to focus on this because I'm one of these that gets a bit distracted with bright, shiny things. I suffer from bright, shiny-itis. And so we thought if we had no other distractions, we didn't have any excuses. So that meant that we were totally committed to getting this launched and off the ground. We went over to America where we developed, or we didn't personally develop, but we worked with somebody obviously that had the technical skills to create the software program and created it pretty much how we wanted it. We wanted to try and make it as simple, as user-friendly as possible. We wanted to be able to customize the message, so we didn't. We wanted to be able to have businesses that could say, instead of saying, hi, this is your daily care call from CareCallingNow, they could do, for example, hi, this is your daily care call from Samsung, because I happen to have the TV on. So that it's then their brand and their marketing. And we've got one lady, she's created a membership website, and part of her membership is that the people get a daily care call, and she has like retirement solutions for people to help them go into aged care. So she said for her it's sort of revenue neutral advertising, and it keeps her name to the forefront so that when the people are ready to move out of their own home, when they're ready to start looking at a retirement home or something, they've been getting her brand every day, and they say, oh, I must talk to her. And incorporated in that, she's going to fluff it out with like a newsletter, and, that you can talk to her and email her and, as I said, just fluff it out basically. But for her, it's a good way to collect, to grow a list and get her name out there. And they pay to market her name, I guess. So, and she just uses us as a vehicle because it will be her name. So, and that's how we got the label of being Seniorpreneurs, because Ian and I are both in our 60s, and here in Australia they did some research and discovered there's actually more seniors starting online businesses than millennials and Gen Ys.
And that's in Australia or the
in
world?
Australia,
or?
yes.
In
no,
Australia,
it was an Australian. It was an Australian report done by. It's called the National. We've got. We're changing everything over to fibre optic, but by the time they get it done, it'll all be obsolete. Anyway, yeah. So they did. The National Broadband Network did this. They've called it the silver economy, and they said that seniors are contributing. Squillions to the economy by creating all these new businesses. And they came to the conclusion it's because, we've got the time, because a lot of the young ones have still got mortgages and, have the work, so they're trying to grow their business parallel to working and getting the business, the online business, to a stage that they can quit working so that they can focus on they don't have the luxury, I guess, of having funds behind them. Also, we've got the networks behind us, and also we've got, I guess, just life experiences to do things, not necessarily technology things, but just common sense, I think, too, which is probably a bit more common in older people than the younger ones, sometimes you think. So that might be a gross overgeneralisation. I apologise to anybody that's offended.
No, I get it. It's interesting because you did right. I spoke to a lady yesterday who wants to start something, but she has this kind of mortgage anxiety, which I speak a lot about on this show, where you've got bills to pay, and you can't turn over into this new idea, this new business, because you've got to put food on the table. So, as you said, they're having a bit of money behind you and having the time, you can then sort of dip your toe into new businesses. The networking thing, I never thought about that, and it's a great point. So what you're saying is that over your years of business, you've built up a huge network, so then you can tap into that to then help you launch a business, yeah?
Yeah, that all helps.
Yeah.
I guess it depends too. We've always been very entrepreneurial. We chose the self-employment path probably 30 something years ago. So, and I think once you choose that path, you have a different mindset to someone that is, has been an employee for 30 years. It's much tougher for someone like that to be able to, I think, let loose and go with it, because we've sort of always been a little bit fearless, perhaps to our detriment. Perhaps a bit of fear might have been a good thing in the past, because we've tried lots of things, and some have worked well, some have not worked so well and cost a lot of money. But hey, you learn, and I know it's a bit of our philosophy. You've got to give it a go. You can't die wondering. It's too late now to say, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I'd had a go at that. Well, we had a go, and it either worked or it didn't. Do you know what I mean? So that's always sort of been our philosophy. So other people are more cautious, and, their life's path has been perhaps gentler than ours, but it's been fun.
You're dead right. I mean, some of these people who use your service, I bet there's not many of them say, yeah, I really regret doing this, I regret doing that. It's they regret doing the things they didn't do. And
absolutely.
So you're all over this, you've done it. And those failures that you went through, because you've done that, this is where you are now because of those. And you've invested and you've tried things. If you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have started this business. You started this business because you've got experience in starting and failing and getting back up and doing it again. So all power. Did you expect to start a business at this time, though? Because did you say that you guys were kind of come at the end of your working career and you're looking to maybe come off the gas a bit, and then you've started this? Was this always a plan to do something, or did it just fall into you?
It just sort of I don't know. It just sort of grew. It was like back when we were dealing with Ian's mother, we didn't ever think then, oh, hey, let's do that in 20 years' time. Do you know what I mean? It just was something that we knew someone that had done something similar in America, and it had been successful, and then we related that to the experience that we'd had with Ian's mother, and we sort of thought, yeah, hey, there's nothing here, and certainly in Australia there's nothing like this. The Red Cross do a loneliness call that's with volunteers, and they will ring, they'll ring your mum and have a chat to her for 15 or 20 minutes, and but it can only be here in Australia. It's only there's only a 2-hour window, and it's generally in the morning. Now, not everybody wants that. We've got one lady. She lived in Chicago, and her mum lives in Chicago, and she moved and retired to Mexico. And she said her mum still works, so for her it wasn't a fall issue or a frailty sort of a vulnerability sort of issue. She just wanted to know that her mum got home safely from work every day. So her phone call is in every evening, whereas if you were with the Red Cross, you can only have it in the morning, which didn't really
Right.
serve her needs. So with us, we can call any time of the day or night. But generally speaking, most people do it in the morning because nighttime is sort of the vulnerable time, like that gentleman in the retirement home that fell during the night when he went to the toilet, because that's probably when they're most vulnerable.
So, not wanting to steal your thunder, but it's quite a simple idea, isn't it? Do you know,
Absolutely.
that you just took forward. So, how did that look like starting the business? Did you have to have a lot of capital behind you? Did you need a lot of infrastructure, technology? You know, where did you?
Well, it's low technology insofar as there's no special equipment for the person receiving the call. They just need a mobile phone or a landline. So we found for the market that we're targeting, for them, it's ideal because a lot of them are a bit technophobe. You know, a lot of the kids say, "Oh, well, we can put cameras and there's carpets that'll detect if you fall and lasers and," but that age group, that age group don't want that. You know, the kids do, and the kids might have it when they get to that age group, but the group of people that we're talking about, they're still of the mentality that they don't want to be a bother. You know, they just want to keep stuff simple. They don't want to make a lot of fuss and a big song and dance about anything. So this, because it's so low tech and not intrusive, they're a lot more receptive to it. And going back to what you said, so really once we'd got the technology done, there's really not much else. We sort of advertise on Facebook and things like that. So it's not huge.
It's not a huge overhead for you to run the business, no?
No.
Wow. So what we're saying is here then, you could be anywhere in the world, Irene, to run
Absolutely.
this business?
At the moment, we have we've just created a couple of strategic partnerships with some people in Canada who are servicing, you know, the age group that we're looking at in various different ways. We also Canada and Australia obviously is easy because we're here, Johnny, on the spot. So we've had quite a bit of media coverage, especially through that NBN report. We were a bit of a case study face of the seniors. So we got quite a bit of coverage on that media. So I was a bit of a media tart there for a couple of weeks. But we can go anywhere, but they're the sort of places that we've primarily targeted. The States because of the numbers, you know, because there's millions of them there. So
Sure. So what does it look like now? What does the future look like? Are you going to try and build on this and bring new products or services, or is it? I was thinking you're going to say no. I'm going to look at an exit, and I'm like, no, you're on it now. You're growing. You're growing.
Just this last week, we've really got a lot of positive feedback. We've been talking about medication reminders. So, hi Ian,
right.
have you taken your medicine this morning? And by the way, have you eaten your breakfast?
No, to both of those actually. Thanks for the reminder.
Yes. So a lot of people, you know, it'll basically be the same flat platform, just a different message. So, and we were discovering that.
How are you going to take that forward then? Will you have to do some partnerships with, you know, medical associations, hospitals, GPs, or?
Possibly. We went to an expo yesterday. The other area that we were thinking that we hadn't really explored too much was we've sort of primarily been looking at elderly people, but we've discovered it for some of the younger disabled kids actually that want to leave home. Mum's probably not prepared to let go. The kids are desperate to say, Mum, we can do this, but they don't want to talk to Mum every day and have Mum checking on them every day, but they would probably tolerate us as an independent third party, that they would accept that as a compromise to let Mum know that they're okay, but it doesn't actually physically involve Mum. Do you know what I'm sort of saying?
Yeah, I do.
And they can, you know, perhaps try it and say, okay, well, we'll give this a try. and if it works, then it's a way for them to gain their independence and still have someone checking on them without it being in their face so much.
Excellent. Have you? I mean, I hope you don't mind us asking, but have you got a younger family yourself, Irene, that might kind of take up the reins of this? It sounds like this could take off for you and not become this, sort of low touch business.
We've got children in their 30s, so they could potentially. We've got one that works. She works in a job, but our son is quite entrepreneurial, and I guess if it turns into a mega business, I'm sure he would be more than happy if we pay him and create the type of lifestyle he would like to grow accustomed to. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to take it over.
Just because the reason I ask is it's time to kick back. But I mean, I think the message here on this episode is that, there is no time. That you don't have to think, right, okay, I need to retire now. If you've got an idea, you're just going to go for it, yeah?
Yeah. If you don't have a go, you'll never know. So.
And there's just no time like the present. Just get it done.
Just get it done. Yep.
You mentioned Facebook ads earlier. So when you're doing Facebook ads, who are you actually targeting here? Are you targeting the children of the parents, or are you targeting
yes.
B2B? Okay.
We're targeting on Facebook. We're targeting the baby boomer, primarily women. That's not to say that the sons don't care, but it tends to fall on the women to organise it, and then they say, "Oh, Ian, you're kicking in $10 a month. We're doing this for Mum," and you say, "Sure. Where do I put it?" And she's organised it. Your sister, for example. So on Facebook,
it's better than I'm moving in with me anyway.
Exactly. Well, that was the other thing too. I found with my own mum, you used to think, oh, I should call her. And then you think, oh, it's going to be like an hour. Am I up for it? Oh, no, no, not today. No. I'll call her tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into the next day and the next day. And before you know it, it's a week gone by and you haven't spoken to her. And then if something has happened in that time, you'd feel awful. But it's just some days it's really hard work.
It is. I used to visit my grandmother, and maybe 5 days would go by, and I used to get, "Oh, hello, stranger." I kind of come every day,
Exactly. Yeah. So, but with the Facebook, as I said, we are that's primarily targeting older women. I love the term sandwich generation. They're the people, and again, as I say, primarily women, that are sandwiched in the middle. They've still got children, either not young ones, but late high school, that sort of thing, or at university, or kids that have been away and come back again that are living at home, and they've also got a parent or a grandparent that they have to take care of in the middle, on the other side, and potentially even grandchildren, some of them. Yeah. And they're being pulled in both directions. There's a fabulous picture of one in a sandwich generation, and she's the burger in the bun.
Right. Okay.
And she's just squeezed in the middle and being torn in both directions, probably still working. So, at least part-time, she's got her own household, and she's just being torn in all these different directions. And that's probably the woman that we're primarily targeting, that's just pretty frazzled, that even to find the time to call her mum, knowing she should, it can often be difficult. And the other thing is too, as you said, if you don't call them at the beauty of our service is we call them at the same time every day. So it becomes part of the routine, and there's none of that, "Oh, hello, stranger." Like, you normally call me at 8 and today you're calling me at 7 o'clock at night. Like, what's happened the rest of the day? Why weren't you calling me? That sort of thing. So it takes that pressure off everybody, and hence the peace of mind again.
I loved what you mentioned there about your customer, because I do a lot of work on customer avatars and buying personas. So basically, you kind of, I don't know if you knew what you were doing there, but you told me exactly who your ideal customer was. It was a lady who
her name's Lisa.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I love it. I knew I'd get this out of you. So it sounds like you've done your homework on this. You created Lisa, and you've thought about Lisa.
Yes.
Love that. So another takeaway for our listeners is, and as I mentioned, their buying personas, they're so valuable to just sit down and kind of think, where does Lisa hang out? What does she do? What's her pains? What does she look to do to get some enjoyment out of life? And all these little things end up becoming features and benefits of your product or service, don't they?
That's right. And we struggled a little bit with it, my husband particularly, because he sort of said, oh, that's not to say Lisa's is the only one. But she's probably the primary target. And whilst we said, she's in the probably 45 to 60 type age range. I know you're supposed to be more specific. We've chosen specifically 49, but on Facebook we're targeting, a bit older, because I know I've got friends that are my age that have got parents that are, still that have the need. But once they get past sort of 60, 65, then you're starting to get into the group that probably starts to need the help. And it's more difficult to get them because they don't need it. They're fine. I don't need that. I'm fine. And it's the kids that push it on them. It's for the kids' peace of mind, not so much for the person that gets the call. They'd sort of tolerate it for the kids.
Your husband's right when you're talking about Lisa, because you quite often in business you have a number of buying personas. So an example might be a lady in her 40s who's going to buy a pair of jeans, and if you're trying to target her on Facebook with your new jeans that you've just brought out, it's probably best to target Snapchat. And you think, well, that lady's not going to be on Snapchat. Yeah, but her daughter is. So if you put a nice pair of cool jeans on that the mothers are wearing, and then that daughter goes shopping with her mum, and she says to her mother, you're not wearing those awful mum jeans. I've seen these cool ones on Snapchat that everyone's wearing. And so it's influencing by different buying personas.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's true too. So, but everybody said all the older people, our target market, they're all on Facebook, and the kids aren't anymore because they all got off when their parents got on.
You're dead right. And I think a lot of so my parents, who live half the year in India and they're retired, they're on Facebook to see what we're up to and to see pictures of my kids.
Yep.
And just to keep in touch and contact. So it's a kind of another little sort of link into what you do, because I know, or my mum kind of watches me from a distance. She knows what I'm up to. She just need to call me every day. She can see me checking into all these places and being
I'm
okay.
I'm a bit frustrated because my children, they communicate now on Snapchat and Instagram, and I'm not going on that because I refuse to learn it. But we've had quite a lot of success. A lot of our strategic partnerships and that are actually coming from Twitter. So business to business wise, Twitter is working really well, more so than Facebook. Facebook's, for the person like individuals, but Twitter seems to be better for business to business.
So do you manage those platforms yourself, or do you outsource that?
Ian does.
Excellent.
Yes,
Brilliant.
He gets up every morning and he posts on Twitter and does Facebook. I call him my IT department. I'm a bit. I fit into my target. I fit into my avatar in that I'm a bit of a technophobe.
Right. Well, you mentioned something when we've been described. Was it something silver? Something you used a term, and when we're talking about seniorpreneurs, I think the article you would be mentioning is some
called
sort of
the silver economy.
Silver economy. I love that. So, thinking about takeaways and thinking about listeners, the silver economy, I would love to see some studies on the UK and the US in terms of how that silver economy looks. But it's very interesting, and I'm really pleased to have you on the show today, Irene, to show that there is a silver economy there. And when people think that they might retire at 60, who wants to retire? It's overrated, eh?
Absolutely. What we're aiming for is, and I'm sure your listeners have heard it, is the laptop lifestyle. You want to create a business, and that's why we were so adamant we wanted to automate it and not get caught up with volunteers and call centres and live conversations and things like that. And that's not to say that down the track we might not do that, but that's why we wanted to automate as much as we could, so that it wasn't reliant on us, making the calls or having to react to things. You've still got to oversee it, of course, but it's not always about some people have to have their finger on every little aspect and can't let go. I think for this laptop lifestyle, you have to have a degree of arm's length. If you're like, neither Ian or I are control freaks. I think control freaks would probably freak out with this because they couldn't let go.
Yeah.
They need to have their finger on it all the time. And luckily, we're not that way inclined.
I think what we're seeing quite often now is people looking for passive incomes and in these laptop lifestyles. But there is a number of touch points you need to do, but just not as many as a kind of a more full on role. So all power to you, Irene. Thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed it. And listen,
can I add one last thing?
I was going to just ask you. I want you to leave me with something. Leave us with something.
Oh, okay. This isn't that, but I was just looking at the the silver economy thing. Mm-hmm. They're saying that the senior Australians are contributing. They're expecting $11.9 billion contribution to Australians' gross domestic product every year.
Wowzers. Loving that.
And they're calling it e-tirement.
Oh, get in. I'm writing that down. I'm going to use that forever. I'm loving it.
So leaving you with it.
I want, where can we find you? Where can we tweet you? Where can we find Ian on Twitter and say, mind, I loved Irene. She was awesome today. Oh. Where can we find you?
Well, now you're asking me a lot. Our website is CareCallingNow.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Twitter.
And your face.
Facebook is CareCallingNow. And Twitter
is CareCallingNow.
There you go.
I'm just checking myself. I'm trying to beat you to it.
CareCallingNow hashtag on Twitter. Hashtag CareCallingNow.
All right. Okay. Good stuff. Right. Well, Irene, thanks again. I've really enjoyed our time, and I wish you guys the best for your business. And I'm intrigued to see where you're going to take this, and I think it's going to be world domination.
I hope so, and I love your enthusiasm. Thank you so much, Ian.
Okay, take care, Irene.
Okay then, bye.
Thanks to Irene Manson. That really got me thinking about how we don't really know what this journey is going to be like. Irene and her husband Ian are now in retirement, loving it. And I hadn't realised the silver economy was in such a growth phase. Maybe we will never retire at all. Who knows? But again, it's great to hear another journey and take away some new thoughts. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a seniorpreneur, or an intrapreneur, go and do the best you can, because that's all we can do, and you're doing it amazingly. I know you are. So enjoy your week, and until next time, I'm Ian Farrer. This is the Industry Angel, and thanks for listening.